All right, hey guys, Josh B. Craft here, another 2mm shift. I'm going to talk to you today about something that has been near and dear to my heart, and it starts with a question. How do you know you're in the right room? Now, when you think of business networking, you think of going to events, you think of the people you surround yourself around, those people tend to define you. Right? There's a common saying in the personal development, business development world, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. Now, let's dissect that for a second to better understand, because I've talked to some people and they kind of dismiss it like, well, I'm my own person, so blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the deal. You need to understand that there's a certain amount of psychology that goes with this that's very sound, right? If you think of it in terms of data, what data are you collecting on a daily basis to determine the world around you and what you live in, right? Now, certainly we can look at a room and determine the environment of the room, but when we start talking people, we start talking about things on a psychological level, not a physical level. Psychological data has to come from the people you spend the most of time with, or the books you read, or the TV shows you watch, the influences that you have as you're collecting that data. You can only remain so impartial to it before it starts to impact your world, right? And we see this when we engage in immersive sort of behaviors, right? There's a reason that the military sends you to boot camp and immerses you in that for 90 days, because it'll change your standards. It'll change your environment so radically that you'll become a different person, legitimately, right? Now imagine if you're doing that same thing in the business world, and you're surrounding yourself by high-achieving business people because you want more money. Well, what you don't realize is there's more data than that comes with that intention, right? There's also, how do those people deal with their relationships? How do they care about the people most important to them? How do they deal with challenging situations, right? Are they reactive and emotional, or do they have a level of calm and measured to them and whatnot? And I'm not saying any of those things are good or bad or right or wrong. You have to decide that for yourself. But what you need to understand is that the people you surround yourself with matter, right? And there's a reason that even though some people love people in their family, they love people that were friends to them and close to them, but they still keep them at a distance, because it matters what you're bringing into your world. And some people have kind of an emotional reaction to that, right? You're going to cut me out of your world because you just want money or something. Well, listen, I want to be the person that can accomplish the things in the world that I'm trying to accomplish, and you're working against me with that because you need me to be something that I'm not, right? So where do you draw the line on who's being a, quote, jerk in that situation? And that's really the core part of this video. How do you know you're in the right room has to do with how you evaluate the give and take of energy that's happening with the people that you're around. Are you nice to a fault? I am. It takes away from me all of the time. But it's also part of what I want to impart in the world. Patience and understanding of people is a big thing that I want to give to the world. So I exercise it a lot, even though it takes away from me in certain ways, creates extra stress in my life, right? Now, would somebody want to model that? I tell people all the time they may not want to, right? That's not something that is extreme as I am with it, that they may not want to be that, right? Now, there's other people that I surround myself with that counterbalance that. They're the opposite. You don't get a chance to waste their time. Why do I surround myself with somebody like that? One, we happen to get along, right? There's more to the connection than just this dynamic, but like that dynamic helps me counterbalance my tendency to go the other way, right? There's a strategy. And by the way, I pull against them the same way. There's an equal and opposite gravity to that, right? You surround yourself by people that can complement your inadequacies and can amplify your superpowers, right? They can accessorize that in the right way, as my good friend and business partner Tim always says. You're in a different position in life and business, and what's going to happen is you're going to have opportunities that you never thought were possible, because you're not just trying to get the word out about your business. You're not just trying to get the next sale or anything. You're actually trying to build relationship. And I can tell you relationships are far more profitable than transactions, right? And the way we build those relationships is we evaluate who can we have in our inner circle that amplifies, right? And that's it. How do they amplify? And it might seem like kind of a crude cold way of measuring who you give your time and energy to, but I want you to consider something. You got one life to live, and you get to do with it whatever you want to do. At the end of your life, you get to decide whether or not you created something that was worthy of who you've learned yourself to be. And if the answer is yes, then you've won. If the answer is no, then there was probably some missed opportunity, right? Now, we won't know that till we get to that part in our lives, but you have to understand that the people that we interact with throughout that lifetime are going to drastically shape that story. Because no matter how you slice it, doesn't matter who you look up to, who you've seen, doesn't matter if it's Tony Robbins, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Donald Trump's popular right now, doesn't matter who you look up to in any way, shape, or form, none of them did it alone. They all surrounded themselves with people who are badass at amplifying their world, mentally, emotionally, financially, physically, right? As a whole kind of encompassing thing, they've built their life through the relationships they have, not just with the relationship with themselves. But the relationship with yourself comes down to evaluating how you want to stack those relationships and what impact you can create together if you do. Because here's the deal, whether you think that's a cold line to judge people on and that it's selfish in some way, I promise you the other people in the room, that the real people you want to be around are judging other people on that same line. And what they create in the world together usually is far more than the people who go, that's a cold line that I'm not going to cross, right? And I think what you have to realize is that you set your standards and your boundaries, and within those standards and boundaries, you either amplify or degrade. And if you're degrading, you're not building the life you want, period, plain and simple. If you're amplifying, you're actually imparting the world with something better than what it previously had, barring criminal and sort of negative intended things. So assuming that you're, a well-adjusted person and you're going to do good things in the world, amplifying that seems like the best value you can give the world, right? So get critical about the people you spend time with. Get critical about how you evaluate that. What's the piece of them that I admire and want to connect with the most, and what's the part that I don't want as much in my life? Right? Some people you're going to have to make that very clear. Other people you're like, no, they're totally cool. Love it all. But are they amplifying in everybody else's lives that they center themselves around? So that way your network amplifies their network, amplifies their network, amplifies their network, right? And you're in a constant state of amplification. This is why it's so important to decide the 5 people you hang around the most, because that data that comes in either amplifies or degrades. So 2 millimeter shift, you might already understand this, you might already practice this in some way, but I want you to start evaluating how you know you're in the right room and be certain that the people you're spending the time with are the people that are going to amplify along with you. They're not going to be a regret later on in your life. They're going to be something you were proud to cultivate that relationship with, right? I hope that was helpful. I'll see you on the next 2 millimeter shift.